Published a380 Est, the 25th of November 2017. Updated 1936 Est, the 25th of November 2017. It really is very, very quiet, both inside and outside, says British Airways captain Claire Bunton. The 48-year-old has been flying the A380 for 2 years now and has kindly agreed to tell Mail Online Travel just what it's like to be in control of one. And it turns out that the low levels of noise it makes is one of the most surprising aspects of flying it. That and the handling. And its funky tech. British Airways captain Claire Bunton, pictured, has been flying the A380 for just over 2 years. Captain Bunton, who has been with BA since 1990, went through 14 weeks of training before she was allowed to pilot an A380. It is truly remarkable that 560 tons flies so beauty, she says. It's very responsive and handles extremely well. Remarkable indeed, since the A380's sheer size is utterly staggering. It has wings that at 2,775 square feet are 54% bigger than those of a Boeing 747, 4 Rolls-Royce engines that are the size of a Mercedes C-Series, and enough storage space to transport 469 passengers, in a BA configuration. It's so big that only around 20 runways in the world can handle it. But its enormousness comes in handy for battling turbulence. The A380's sheer size is utterly staggering. It has wings that at 2,775 square feet are 54% bigger than the wings of a Boeing 747, and enough storage space to transport 3,000 suitcases and 525 passengers. Bunton, who used to be a professional kite surfer, says that a 500-plus ton cruise weight, coupled with great wing design and sophisticated controls, results in a very comfortable ride and the aircraft performing well in turbulence. It's good during crosswind landings, too, apparently. In crosswinds it's very responsive and handles extremely well, says Bunton, who lives on the UK south coast and in Cape Town in the winter. Bunton has previously flown 747s and 777s for BA. SHEs pictured here in front of an A380 Rolls-Royce engine, which is about the size of a Mercedes C-Class car. The A380 has several routes at British Airways: Singapore, Hong Kong, Johannesburg, Miami, Washington, Boston, Vancouver, San Francisco, Los Angeles and Chicago from May 2018. Visit the British Airways website for more information. In a crosswind, an aircraft will track down the approach center line lined up with a runway. We point the aircraft into wind to offset the crosswind and to keep tracking the runway center line. We call this crabbed. On the A380 we flare, bring the nose up gently for 2 count at approximately 40 feet. Just before 2 count we gently apply some rudder with our feet to align the aircraft with the runway at just the right point. Yes, all this at 170 mph. Landings can be aided by a very clever system called a BTV, which applies just the right amount of braking force for a preset runway exit. Bunton explains, the A380 has many funky bits of kit on it, including a BTV, a brake to vacate option. This allows us to select the runway exit before landing, so instead of using a set auto brake figure, or our foot brakes, the aircraft will apply the efficient carbon brakes at exactly the correct moment to ensure we vacate the runway as quickly as possible using minimum braking. It's brilliant so that the operating pilots are fresh for the landing on ultra-long-haul flights. The flight crew will be bolstered by an extra pilot. There's also a hidden sleeping area, but it's not the ideal place to be in turbulence. Bunton says, we have a plush pilot bunk area. To save space, the bunks are positioned laterally across the aircraft. In turbulence, the rocking of the aircraft is not so comfortable if you're lying laterally. Safety is obviously a priority for any British Airways flight, and to make sure that A380 pilots are in total control, they go through very rigorous training. Bunton has previously flown 747s and 777s for BA in a career that began in 1990, but still had 14 weeks of training for the A380. The A380 has a hidden bunk for the pilots, but Captain Bunton says that it's not very comfortable in turbulence. Captain Bunton reveals some of the high-tech assistance the crew get. Flaps automatic retraction and extension of the first stage of the trailing edge flaps at 205,212 knots, 235,243 miles per hour. This is very useful on high-weight departures from Singapore, for example. Displays. This is where the A380 really interacts with its pilots, and the information available to us is enormous. With so much information to present, it could be overwhelming to the pilot, but Airbus has used color, large and small text and intuitive symbols with great effect to get that huge amount of information across. Our navigation displays are our window onto the world. The A380 has a vertical display, which displays, among other things, altitude constraints on departure and arrival and the vertical extent of thunderstorms and high terrain. FMS Flight Management System. The A380's FMS has evolved to help us find the most efficient way to get from A to B. Of the many marginal gains, this gives us the opportunity to examine different routings and altitudes, using present and forecasted temperatures and winds. She says, the training to get onto the A380 from having flown another jet aircraft is pretty intense, as with all aircraft courses, the ground school was about 3 weeks, which involved many early starts and late finishes, and of course studying at weekends trying to get ahead. Then comes the simulator phase, which is also about 3 weeks of more intensity. For me, it was easier just to stay up at Heathrow, where our training academy is, to keep away from the pressures of daily life at home and simply concentrate on all things A380. After the simulator phase, you start the line training phase, where you are monitored by an additional senior pilot, and once again there is a lot to get through. This phase takes about 8 weeks. Nervous flyers will be pleased to hear that generally it's on these training courses, and not at 38,000 feet, that mid-flight dramas are tackled. Bunton says, we really try not to do drama. First, we have rigorous flight simulator training assessment details. These are over 2 days twice a year. Within these 4 days we will manage engine fires and failures, smoke in the aircraft and other technical failures involving hydraulics, flying controls, pressurization, electrics, external issues like wind shear, weather and air traffic. On any particular simulated flight, the instructor will throw a number of these issues at us. Secondly, we discuss emergency scenarios ahead of every flight. Before takeoff, we always discuss how we will complete a rejected takeoff and how we would deal with an engine that fails just after takeoff, as well as other scenarios. Navigation displays on the A380 include information on altitude constraints on departure and arrival and the vertical extent of thunderstorms and high terrain. Captain Bunton has revealed which seat on the aircraft she'd choose if she was a passenger. Each one of the 70 blades in an A380 engine contributes about 900 horsepower during takeoff. In the cruise, we will have a chat about what we will do in the extremely unlikely scenario of an engine failure, a decompression or unexpected severe turbulence, for example. We will consider which alternate airfields would be suitable for us in different scenarios and problems that may arise at any of these alternate airfields. Before the start of our descent, we brief each other on the issues that may make this particular approach tricky and how to manage them. Bunton clearly loves being in the driving seat, but if she had to sit in the cabin, seat 2A in first class, she says, of course alongside the other high flyers,